Okay, well, my name is Barabara Carrasco. I was born in El Paso, Texas in 1955. My parents also were born there. My grandparents were born in Mexico. But then when I was about 1.5, we moved to Los Angeles and, different places. But we settled in Mar Vista Gardens housing projects, and we're living there for over 20 years. And that was an interesting experience in itself, because it was a real multicultural kind of a community. It wasn't just Chicanos or Mexicans. It was everybody. It was our next door neighbors were from Egypt, so it was interesting.
And just like in the 60s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and my mother sent all of us to Catholic school, St. Gerard's, and
That's where I went to.
oh, you went to St. Gerard's?
Yeah.
Oh man, those nuns were so strict. Well, I'm older than you, so I had the nuns that where you only saw this part of their face, and that's it.
Oh yeah.
Everything else was covered, and so they were very, very strict. And in 7th grade, I kind of knew I was a feminist, because when we had to pick a saint's name for confirmation, I picked St. Joan of Arc.
Okay.
So the nuns go, who? And I go, well, she's the only one I thought was a real heroic figure, someone to aspire to. And so, but then I went to Venice High School. Well, Marina Del Rey Junior High, and that's
Okay, yeah.
But Venice High School was great because they had an upper bound program that bused us to UCLA, which made us really want to go to the campus, because it was the first time I ever had real milk. I know it sounds weird, but they bused us to the cafeterias, and I grew up with half real milk and half carnation powdered milk, and I actually hated that stuff. But my mother thought she was being cold-blooded, but we didn't like it. But I made a vow to myself, I'm going to go to that school. And it's
I'm curious, like when you said that you picked Joan of Arc as like your, I guess the confirmation name, like I noticed in a lot of, just doing a lot of reading about you, like there's a very strong, firm, like, bold, feminine energy that you have, you know what I mean? So like, you think that's like, where do you think you get some of that from?
Well, actually, I get it from people like Joan of Arc, but also my mom was very strong.
Yeah.
My mother was, my father died when I was 12. My mother had to raise all 5 of us by herself. And she was very tough.
Yeah.
Tough lady from El Paso. I mean, she was way more strict than the nuns at school.
Really?
She was. She told you to do something, you did it, because she was a professional bowler. She was raised by the champion bowler of Mexico. My aunt, Dolores. If you go to Juarez, there's a big old thing of my aunt in there, because she was on the Mexican bowling team and represented Mexico and Germany and all over the place. And the uniforms were really crazy back then. They're long pleated skirts. But she's the one who influenced my mom a lot to get into bowling. And so my mom carried a 16-pounder. So that's why I was afraid of her.
Yeah.
she had a strong right hand.
Yeah.
But she also became a Girl Scout leader. So I was her experiment in Girl Scouts. So Barbara's going to show you how to do this or that or whatever. So she was a good Girl Scout leader.
Yeah.
So I was in that for a couple of years, and but I always knew I wanted to be an artist, because I was not good academically. Catholic school, I barely. It was really hard for me to get through all the academic classes. But in 4th grade, I had a nun who was very sympathetic to our family. She knew we were poor, so she would give us free milk. She don't tell the other nuns, Sister Marianne, really nice lady.
What was the makeup of? What was the makeup of St. Gerard's at that time? Because when I went there, mid late 80s, and it was predominantly. It was mostly Mexican, yes, a couple, Indian, some white folks, but it was predominantly Chicano, Mexican, like 80%.
Oh, well, no, I think it was mixed, really mixed when I was going there. There was a lot of Anglo students, Asian students, Black students, and that was another bone of contention for me. I saw the way that Black students were, like one nun wanted my friend with this Black girl to straighten her hair, to iron her hair straight. And I got really mad. I was in the 6th grade or something, and I said, well, you don't tell the white girls how to do their hair. I mean, I thought that was a little, I noticed a lot of stuff, when we were there. And, we were poor. And I remember first grade, a nun made me stand up in front of the whole class and tell everybody what I had for breakfast. And because I wasn't alert enough.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
And so I said, well, an egg and Kool-Aid, a glass of Kool-Aid. Everybody laughed because I guess they had toast and orange juice and all that
American
shit.
breakfast.
And it was really traumatic for me because I didn't know why they were laughing. I just started crying, And then I told my mother. My mom came there. She just told that teacher off.
Oh wow.
She just said, "How dare you? We're poor. It's nothing to be ashamed of. That's just the way we are.
Yeah.
And but I never forgot that. That was very kind of cruel. So in fourth grade, I meet this nun who's extremely kind and gracious, and she supported my art. She gave me art tools and a sketchbook, and I never had that. My mother couldn't afford that. So and then she also let me attend summer school free, and she was just such a nice lady. And even after I graduated from Catholic school, her letters that she wrote to me about for me to realize that it's a gift, that my ability to draw really well. So those are at Stanford.
That's great, because it's like, just the dedication of teachers to go out the way to do that. And I just watched that movie with the first Chicano astronauts. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah,
great movie. I forgot what it's called, but then there, like, he had a teacher that would follow him, like, from elementary, and she just saw something in him, and she kept nurturing, and they have it. And it's factual too. I guess before he, went into his first trip to space, she went to greet him off before his first takeoff.
Wow.
This is like 40 years later almost. From the time he was in elementary. So
some teachers could be really, really instrumental in someone growing, or really bad. For example, Dolores Huerta when she told me this story, I thought she should share it with people. She wrote an essay, and the teacher didn't believe she wrote it. So the teacher said she gave her a lower grade. And then Dolores said, well, I worked really hard on that essay. Well, why did I get this lower grade?
Yeah.
She goes, I don't believe you wrote it. And then so even today, years later, Dolores still doubts her ability to write.
Yeah.
Because I had asked her if she could write a letter of introduction for this one photographer, Chicano photographer, really nice guy, George Rodriguez, who did a lot of he photographed all the farm worker stuff. The guy is really nice, like almost 80 now.
Yeah.
And has done so many good things in his lifetime. So it took Dolores 6 months to write that. I was bugging the hell out of her. Dolores, when are you gonna finish it?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And I didn't know about that story.
Yeah.
And I go, I think you should share that story with young people. Young people need to know that people as famous as her who experienced that kind of treatment, which was not good. It was not a good thing.
And I think it needs to be highlighted more too, because words have power, and words can really affect.
Words have power. That's very true.
They can negatively or positively affect anything or anybody, right? So imagine generations of, let's say, Chicanos being told that they're dumb, or like other people we've interviewed, they would say that because they spoke Spanish, or they assume they would put them in the dumb room, quote unquote. Yeah. So just how much they project a lot of our whatever shortcomings we think that might be our own fault, but really it's because we didn't have that correct system of nurturing our education and whatever.
Yeah. I know that my husband had the dunce cap put on him because he spoke only Spanish in first grade. And those are real traumatic things to happen to a young person. But
because even my mom too, she was she's turned 74 last week. And but she originally lived in Texas too. She came from Monterrey, and she moved to Texas when they were I think 5 or 6, and they lived there for till she was about 10 or 11. Anyways, but she said over there, if she spoke Spanish, they would hit her with a ruler. She wasn't allowed to speak Spanish.
My mother
and the kids make fun of them or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful. Well, that's why my parents didn't teach us Spanish.
Yeah.
Well, my dad died when I was 12.
So where were your parents from and your grandparents from?
Well, my parents were both born in El Paso. Both my mom and dad, they both went to high school there, Jefferson High School for my mother and Bowie High School for my dad. And then my grandparents on both sides were born in Mexico. On my dad's side, the Carrascos are from Miyoki, Chihuahua, which is a little small municipality in Chihuahua. And so I found out later on that David Carrasco, a real famous historian, do you know? Yeah, well, I met him at UTEP at a conference, and he looked so much like my dad's side of the family. His facial, like there's an indentation right here, just certain features. And I said, "Where's your family from?" And he said, "Chihuahua." And I go, "I think we're related. I'm pretty sure we're related." And so he just like kind of was he looked at me like, oh, I think a lot of people say stuff like that to him. But then later on, he friended me on Facebook, so I think he checked me out first,
That's funny.
And anyway, but well, unfortunately my grandparents, everybody died before I was born, except for my grandfather on my mother's side. He was a truck driver. He was really poor, grew up really poor, and my mother loved him a lot. But he married this woman who was not very nice to my mom, but real traditional, super traditional. They lived on a place that is the Chavez now. It was given back land. The land was given back to Mexico.
Yeah.
And so I remember that place really good because it was sugar canes outside and an outhouse, and it was just real old school stuff. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, he was working for the railroad system in El Paso, and so he was very, very strict. They had 8 kids, eight. He had 8 children. My dad had all these siblings, and so one of my dad's brothers, Ricardo Carrasco, my brother was named after him, was a war hero in Korea. They did a movie about him. The movie's called Ceasefire. It was Hal B. Wallace did the movie. That's a big Hollywood guy. And so I wanted to know more about it. So my husband purchased online. He saw Reader's Digest did a 3-page article with Hal Wallace talking about my uncle, and so we have that he said that my this is to make a long story short. He was in the army. He took 7 or 8 army men out of the army to be in the movie called Ceasefire, and it was about Pork Chop Hill in Korea, which was a hard place to overcome, and then so they offered him a full contract, Paramount Pictures, and my uncle turned it down, saying he wanted to go back and fight with his buddies. Stupid. No, he was a hero. So but in the article in the Reader's Digest, it said had he lived, he would have been as famous, as great of an actor as Burt Lancaster and Edward G. Robinson. That's what he says. He says that in the article. My mom used to always say when she was disciplining us that you're lucky I'm not your grandmother. You're lucky, because she would get it.
And then your mom was pretty strict too, so that says a lot, right?
She was very strict. Oh my God. I don't think I ever spoke back to her. Not even one time. Not even once. My little sister did.
Yeah.
And but I never once talked back to my mother. I was afraid of her.
Yeah.
She was just a super strong lady. But I never heard any stories except for how poor they were. They were real poor. That's what she always talked about. And I go, well, we're poor too,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. But my father always said, you could be really poor and not have any money, but there's no excuse not to be clean and your hair brushed and combed right and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember that was something he really talked about.
Yeah,
all
take care
the
of
time.
yourself. Yeah.
Oh, to be presentable.
Yeah.
That was real important to him. So I think because it was a source of like shame if you didn't do that.
Right.
When you go to school, and because when we went to Catholic school, there was one day in the whole year that it was called Free Dress Day.
Oh yeah.
And I hated that day because I wore like the worst.
It was like once a month or something like that, or
once a year.
Oh, once a year, okay.
And it was
We had it once
Salvation Army clothes.
Yeah.
That's what my mother would have us wear. I just hated those clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's really weird. I go there now and buy stuff like now, but
yeah.
But back then I think it was like embarrassing to us because all the other kids wore nice clothes and all that.
Yeah. It was like that's where like the socioeconomic,
Yeah.
Status kind of showed itself more in the clothing.
I know a lot of famous people, like I think I read somewhere where Luis Valdez was real embarrassed to go to school because his mom would make little burritos and he would like have to hide in the back of a building to eat them because he didn't want someone to see him.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a project with them. To talk about those kind of things. I did do a painting about growing up with the projects, and there's different sections in there, and one is about food. So I have like Tang in there. You know,
Yeah.
because we had Tang. We didn't drink orange
Yeah,
juice.
yeah.
And then Spam, you know, and what else? And so, and then that painting, it was about modern day codices based on the Mayan codices. But so that painting was shown at a retrospective of mine. What was a mid-career survey or so at East LA College, and all these young people there, like a lot of students there, they said, oh, I grew up just like that. I grew up eating that kind of food, and I love the response because. You know, because I shared something that we both have in common with a lot of
that shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, the response was really amazing. They were all coming up to me talking about how they grew up in Maravilla or different places, and just like that, you know, oh, we had the same, we eat Spam all the time. And I love Spam and eggs.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I remember my mother,
Yeah.
she used to make it real toasty, and it's so weird, not supposed to be really bad for you, and it's not healthy for you and all that.
It's kind of the pros and cons of diversity, though, right? Because I feel like we came to school with here on the west side with a lot of white kids and stuff, which is good for diversity, but at the same time, our stuff that was normal to us, you know, if you're going up in an all Mexican school, everyone's eating burritos. But I remember telling my mom, I want Lunchables.
You said that.
Yeah, because you know, it's everyone had the little packages and they're all nice and but she would send them with burritos, and it's like, oh man, I remember that feeling that little embarrassment of like, I want the lunch like them, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's some kind of like safety and you know, being the sameness. Or familiar. Well, you know what I really liked about growing up with the projects in Culver City was that we all played together. I mean, all these families. It was just our family playing with just ourselves. It was all the other families getting together, playing kick the can, or and then we had relay races around the project buildings.
Yeah.
And that was fun, you know. And I was a really fast runner. My brother became a top runner at St. Monica's High School. He got all kinds of awards and passed away a couple years ago. He was a chain smoker, so cancer took him. But I remember just that feeling of big community. That's how it started in the project.
Yeah.
Is that we were not alone. It was just a huge family.
Yeah.
A real diverse, huge family. And there were a lot of stereotypes. People would, our friends at school their parents would not allow them to come into the projects. Oh, because those are poor, violent kids or something. You know, there was that kind of stupid kind of,
from where? Like what kids? Where were they? Those other kids live at?
They were the more affluent areas. They had the
like across from Sepulveda, maybe.
Yeah, near St. George's and back in St. George, then Blade.
Oh yeah.
A bunch of my friends lived on that street, and so, but they were not permitted to come into the project. So some of the problems that we had were like people bullying other people. You know, there was a lot of bullying going on in the projects. This one girl bullied me. I was 13 years old, and I remember thinking, God, she's a troublemaker, you know. And so I had a fight with her, and I just did not like it. The police came. They were going to arrest me. I'm 13 years old. I didn't know. I never had a fight before.
Yeah.
And so everybody was telling the police, "Oh no, she didn't start it. The other girl started it." And then my mom, the girls, I think it was her cousin, older cousin, pushed my mother, and from the back, and because my mother was trying to stop me fighting her, I guess her cousin, and so as soon as they saw, I mean, I couldn't believe someone pushed my mother. I was like, I just stopped fighting with that girl, and I was going to go over there, and then with these two black girls in the projects, this is what I love about like an extra family member. They Viola Davis, I remember her really good. She goes, "Oh no, you can't push Martha." She went right to my mother's aid immediately. But my mother had that girl in the headlock already. And they go, "Oh, she messed with the wrong lady."
With the bowling arm, right? She messed with the bowling arm.
But it was amazing that Viola, that the black girls were going there to help my mom. I really liked that. You know, everybody coming together to stop something that was not good. You know, and so, you know, it's really sad that half the people in the projects that I met, that I grew up with, a lot of them died.
Yeah.
from gun violence, gang violence,
Yeah.
stabbings. One guy who was the nicest guy in the world, he tried to stop a fight and someone slit his throat and then from behind. And my sister came in, and this is how common all that shit was. My sister goes,
Yeah.
"Hey, Barbara, did you know a guy named," and I won't say his name just for in case, but I said, "Yeah," and she said, "Well, they just killed him at the gas station," and then she walks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just slit his throat. He was trying to stop a fight, and that's what happened to him, and he was the nicest guy.
Yeah.
When I was going to college, my first year in college was at West LA College, junior college. He would just like, we would talk about how hard it is to go to college without any financial aid, and stuff like that. And he was just real encouraging. He goes, "I think it's really great going to college, Barbara."
Yeah.
And I told him, "Well, I felt the same way about you, And so there was a few of us that were always, determined to get out of the projects. That was one of the things. So maybe there was 5 or 6 of us, a guy named Clarence Moss, Gary Galvin, and I forget the other 2, but we were selected by the housing projects as being outstanding students in the government housing projects.
Yeah.
So
Oh wow!
so
They had awards for like the best,
I love that award. That's my favorite award.
Yeah.
And so it's a little plaque, and it's signed by Housing Authority of LA, and I'm proud of it because like Clarence Moss is a really cool. He became a top martial arts expert.
Yeah.
Top guy, and so every August 5th, we celebrate the fact that we survived the projects.
Yeah.
We have a potluck at Mar Vista Gardens. I'm not Mar Vista Park.
That's interesting. So what do you think as far as like your guys' ability to kind of escape, a lot of that violence or that cycle? Because a lot of it is a trap. A lot of times like something so simple can set you in a whole different trajectory. What do you think were some of the key things that allowed you and those other handful of your friends to kind of like escape some of that fate?
Well, early on in the projects, I was 12 years old, I think. There was a program called, I forgot the name of it. It was a summer program where they bused us to UCLA. And this is before Upper Brown, in high school was Upper Brown. But this program, I forgot all about it. It was such a great program. People like Henry Bibby, I don't know if you know who Henry Bibby is. It's before your time. But he was a famous basketball player. A black guy. He was very, very famous. And then Oku Connolly, an Olympic gold medalist, they were our counselors at the summer youth. It was a summer athletic program. So they bused us to UCLA. We ran around the track and all that, and we'd go up to the dorms to eat lunch. And these are famous people. I had no idea they were famous. But I remember looking at Oku Connolly. She's a big lady. She won several gold medals in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Her husband too. She was married to Harold Connolly. He was an Olympic gold medalist. And for them to take time out of their busy schedules to be with us and guide us and all that, it really impressed me. I thought, well, they don't have to do this. That's great.
Yeah.
And I never forgot it. Like it just stuck with me that they're giving back to the community, which is something that was like it was almost comes back to religion, like what Cesar Chavez did. This dedication to other people, to bettering people, and so. I saw Ogo Connolly when I got older. I saw her in downtown LA. She was working with the California Conservation Corps. And so I just heard her Czechoslovakian accent. And I go, that's Ogo Connolly. And I turned around and she didn't know. I was a woman at that time. And so I told her that she made a big impact on my life. And she said, "Oh my God, you remember me?" And I go, "Yeah, I would never forget."
Yeah.
And it was just good to tell her that so that she knows that we don't take it granted. We don't take her for granted all the work she did.
Yeah.
And she's still working with kids.
Oh, that's
back
great.
then. She lives in Culver City. I think she moved eventually out of Culver City, but she was. And then they got divorced. Harold Kennel. They're in history books, both of them.
Yeah.
And then Henry Bibby, he really liked my sister, Frances. He had like a little crush on my sister, I think, because he was always saying, Frances, because my sister was really cute. She's one, I swear, no one thought we were sisters. We don't look anything like each other.
Yeah.
Like her hair was wavy, black hair on this white hair. And hazel eyes. She's dark. I remember my mother saying for her to get out of the sun because she getting too dark. I don't remember, I forgot about that until
Oh, wow.
I heard someone else saying it when I got older. I go, oh my God, that's what she had to listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't hear that, but I mean, it wasn't said to me, but I learned a lot from the way people treated my sister. Like even in the dorms, though, the white girls would invite me to lunch, but not my sister. So it was just really that kind of racism.
Oh, wow.
That's why I felt it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Do you feel like that kind of charged you up to be seeking more, justice for? Because I mean, for me, I'm light skinned too, and you have times where white people feel comfortable saying like, oh, those fucking Mexican. I'm like, wait, whoa, hold on. What do you I know my skin might look like this, but I'm Mexican. What do you?
Yeah, you know what? That people have said stuff like really bad stuff to me, and then I have to correct them too. I same thing. I have to say, excuse me, but you're talking to me, and it's frustrating because people make assumptions about what Mexicans are supposed to look like. And I go, you look at even black families, there's a range from dark to light.
Yeah, colorism.
Yeah, it's so I did a bunch of paintings about that. I did one painting called Names Can Hurt, and it's me putting on dark makeup, and the Laguna Art Museum, they purchased it, and it was the first time I did a painting about it, and it's like a vanity, and around the vanity it says white girl, Hocha, all the names people used to call me. And I remember a black girl at UCLA said to me, "Oh, you're involved in the Chicano movement just because you're trying to prove yourself." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not trying to prove myself to you or anybody else." I mean,
Who said to you?
This black girl who was in
Yeah.
the black Nomo newspaper, and I remember getting kind of insulted that she said that. I go, "I'm doing this because I believe in it. That's why I'm doing it." You know, there's a difference. You could do it because it's a trend. You could do it because everybody else is doing it,
Yeah.
but I do it because I really believe in it.
Yeah.
I believe what Cesar was talking about.
Yeah.
And then when I became friends with Dolores, I had never met anyone like her in my life, and to this day, she is one strong woman.
Yeah.
I mean, when the police beat her up during Bush Senior's administration, they were trying to kill her. It was no accident. That guy, they had footage of the attack with the guy. They showed the guy looking at her. He identified her. Then he went in with his billy club and hit her, broke her ribs. Her spleen was ruptured. She came very close to dying. And I went to go see her in the heart hospital in Bakersfield, and she looked so bad. But she's strong. She survived it. So.
Yeah.